You have been thoroughly institutionalized. You subconsciously give preference to the actions of institutions and agencies. Not just preference, but legitimacy. And, to make it worse, you hold the actions of individuals and communities to a greater exigence, greater critical exigence, to a greater standard of criticism, because you've legitimized the behavior of institutions and agencies. Let me unpack what I mean and give you an example. So, all right, pipe's going nicely now. So I've been thinking a lot about institutionalization and deinstitutionalization. It's a fun word to say fast. Because of my work in education. I work for a Christian classical free market platform, mostly for homeschoolers. Teachers from all over come, they offer their classes, families purchase them for their kids. They're live group classes, but it's not a school, right? It's a free market, it's a platform. Well, as you can imagine, thinking a lot about how we've been institutionalized into the Prussian factory model of education. And as I was pondering my great ponderations this morning, I have to park my truck about 4 blocks away so I don't have to move it all day here in downtown Moscow. And I'm walking in, and several blocks away, I see my pastor getting into his truck. My pastor is Douglas Wilson of Douglas Wilson fame. And you may recall that several months ago, maybe even a year ago, he and his cronies set a pickup truck on fire. You remember that? So for an ad about their ministry, books that were being published, I think it was actually for that Canon Press app, doesn't matter. A pickup truck was set on fire. A lot of people who said it was awesome couldn't say why it was awesome. We'll put that to the side. A lot of people hated that in their hearts. They behaved like Sackville Bagginses. They philosophized like bureaucrats. Because they are so thoroughly institutionalized. Setting that truck on fire, and apparently that truck has a story, it was ready to be consigned to the flames, but setting that truck on fire struck people as wickedly, wickedly wasteful. Wickedly wasteful. Here's how you've been institutionalized. If you thought that was wickedly wasteful, you would not have blinked if he had spent $20,000. He wasn't actually, I don't think he was actually the mastermind behind it, but whatever. $20,000 on an agency giving him an ad, right? That behavior is legitimate. Not really going to be questioned. Or, money, $500,000 in advertising to an agency? Let's start talking about fiscal responsibility. But hey, it's all legit because we're talking about agencies and institutions. We automatically assume it's legitimate. Some dudes in a backyard setting a truck on fire, illegitimate. And that is how thoroughly institutionalized we've been. If something has been labeled nicely enough, has enough people dressed the right way and in conformity, then it's legitimate. So think about how you let that thinking influence how you think about education, what you demand of your children, of your relatives. Maybe you have family members who homeschool. The family has responsibility for education. That's it. We don't need to have any strange institutions telling us what is what. A friend of mine was recently teaching a class, and he asked his students, good Christian kids, whether the government should be able to tax the church. Let's think about the three classical Kuyperian spheres, right? The church, the state, and the family. Should the state be able to tax the church? Across the board, everybody said yes. Christian homeschoolers in classical education. That's how thoroughly institutionalized we've been. It is hard for us to pull ourselves out of this mindset. And a great way to pull ourselves out of this mindset is to be more poetic and more extravagant. If some great Lord or great leader or great pastor wants to fabulously and extravagantly set a truck on fire to make a point, you know what? That's the kind of thing that our tiny little hearts hate now, but gets put in a biography that gets read 100 years from now. And if you read that about a 19th century preacher, you'd think, wow, that was pretty sweet. But no, instead, we've had our hearts bureaucratized into shriveled little dried cremini mushrooms. All right, cremini mushrooms. It's a good note to end on. Peace of Christ be upon you.
Aí sim é um homem de verdade, não é esses troços do mundo não, essas carcaças velhas, uó, fim de carreira.
Cadê você, profeta, autarquia? Hein? Pedrada no inferno, fala comigo aí, matador de demônio. Hein?